Hello everyone, welcome to today's CCOF Fireside Chat, the why, what and how of implementing voice AI in contact centers. I am Shraddha Kanoria and I will take you through a quick round of introductions before we get started. CCOF is a unique forum to bring customer experience professionals together onto a platform where they can be informed and inspired. Today we are hosting the last event of the year and we would like to thank all of you for your enthusiastic participation and making this series of virtual events possible. This event is being brought to you in partnership with vernacular.ai. Let me welcome our guest today, Sourabh Gupta, who is the co-founder and CEO of vernacular.ai. An IT Roorkee alum, his passion for entrepreneurship and vision for a voice-first future led him to start vernacular.ai 4 years ago. Under his guidance and leadership, the company has raised investments from some prominent investors and has automated the call center operations for several large enterprises across industries. Introducing our moderator for today, MD, who is the founder of this forum. He is an alum of IIT Madras, Michigan State University, and Stanford Business School. He has been an industry veteran for 32 years and an entrepreneur for the last 18 years. He was the first managing director of Dell International Services and is one of the pioneers of India's contact center industry. Currently, he's a mentor to many startups and a passionate customer experience advocate. Quick tips to ensure you have a great experience with us today. You can submit a question at any time during the chat in the Q&A box. All attendees have been muted to avoid any inadvertent disturbance. An important note, post your questions only in the Q&A box and not in the chat box, please. MD will monitor your questions and ask them during the Q&A breaks. Now, without further ado, let me hand things over to MD.
Thank you, Shraddha. And Sourabh, welcome. Wonderful to have you. So want to get started straight away with how this thing came about. I know you started immediately after your college, and that too, you picked the contact center space. So walk us through the thought process and the sequence of events which led to starting something immediately after college.
First of all, thanks a lot, MD, for having me here. So we started, I met Akshay, who's my co-founder and CTO back in college. And, sometime in the fourth year, which is the final year of college, sort of decided to skip campus placements and start a company. We didn't know what to do though. So we just, sort of got together and we decided that we'll take our own time, we'll figure out what are the opportunities and, we will basically go to Bangalore, meet some people and, take it forward from there. We had not thought this through. And we came to Bangalore. We spent the first few months, sort of figuring things out. We were talking to a lot of people, attending events. And, one of these events, I think back in 2016 was FinTech for the next 400 million people. And when we went to this event, we heard everyone talking about, how Geo has sort of changed the landscape of India. Multilingual users are coming online. And the products that they need are going to be very different from what the first 40-50 million people need, and how companies need to look at that opportunity and do something about it. And that seemed like a great place for us to explore. And what we decided was to understand what to do for these users. We should go near these users, and we started traveling across the country, tier 3, tier 4 towns, rural areas, spent a lot of time with farmers. And on one of these trips, we met a farmer who told us he receives SMS from banks in English. He understands it's from a bank because there are digits in the SMS. He doesn't know what it means. So he travels 10 kilometers away to a branch to get it translated. In the process, he loses his daily wage. And at that point of time, we knew this is something that, is a big problem and we should do something about it. And that's how we, started the genesis of the solving for multilingual users started at that point of time. And our first approach was building chatbots, multilingual chatbots for enterprises. We raised some money, we ran that business for around a year, and the business was growing really well. But what we realized was while enterprises are buying chatbots, but multilingual users are actually not talking. After some user research, we realized either these people have challenges with keyboards or a large part of them are illiterate, right? So keyboards or text in general doesn't work, but they all can speak very well. And this is around 2 years ago where we, decided to shut down our chat business and build for a voice first world from scratch. And today we are, of course, doing pretty well.
Amazing story. I don't know how many founders actually go around the country like you did, especially after college. It would have been a fun field trip, I guess, to go talk to farmers and whatnot. Not many people do that actually. So
Yeah,
it's quite
I think
amazing.
maybe because people don't have that much time. But we were just, a few of us were just sitting in Bangalore, nothing to do. So we just wanted to go near the users, we were trying to build for. So yeah.
This is the advantage of starting a company straight away without any work experience.
Yeah,
That's
there are
that's that's
stories.
that's quite amazing actually. But did you find any kind of disadvantage? I mean, you obviously did not know much about contact centers,
Yeah.
other than attending that fintech conference you talked about, which I'm sure wasn't too much contact center related, but all you knew is there was a lot of communication between banks and farmers and customers of the banks.
Yeah.
But other than that, how did you kind of get to understand how contact centers work to build a product for it? Because normally tech products for contact centers are so deep and involved that it takes a while to actually understand the domain itself.
Yeah, yeah. No, that was one of the disadvantages. Mostly starting early is an advantage, but not if you are a B2B enterprise, founder, because enterprises wouldn't take you seriously. And to be honest, we were so young that we didn't even know how to present ourselves in front of enterprises. I remember my first few visits were to NBFCs in Bangalore. There are a few near JP Nagar, BTM area, and we used to live in Whitefield. So, we used to borrow a scooty from a senior and take that to these enterprises where we had not written an email, not made a phone call, but we had a few names from the website. So we'd go to the reception and say, can we meet this person? And the moment they said this person is not there, we used to show the next name and ask if this person is there. So it was very hard initially. And I think also the way we used to present ourselves. I remember my what I used to wear. I used to wear a Pink Floyd t-shirt, jeans. I had Nike shoes which had a you know they had a hole in there was a hole in the shoe. Not that I didn't have money to buy, we just didn't care about these things. And in retrospect, that is not how you go and meet these enterprises. So that was sort of a disadvantage. We had a learning curve of understanding that. Yeah.
That's interesting. By the way, I think going in with jeans and t-shirts is a cool thing in some parts of the world. So you may want to go back to that, especially when you go outside India. You did talk about starting with chat
Yeah.
and then switching to voice after. Did you say 2 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, if you see, there's a kind of a trend where especially enterprises are coming out with apps, giving the apps to customers, and kind of encouraging them to interact through the apps. And interacting through the apps is normally through chats and chatbots. So, is there any change in your own views, or you think that that's once again going to be a very small part of the customer company interaction?
Yeah, yeah. No, I've been trying to, change my view, but it's been very hard to change because, primarily what we see our business is also growing pretty well at that point of time. We were getting customers, they wanted to do chatbots, but uh, what we were not comfortable with was the value that, these chatbots were delivering for the customers. And what we ended up realizing was because the customers were buying technology, they were not buying a solution to a problem they had. And because two banks had it, the next 20 banks had to get a chatbot. And that led to a lot of companies coming up, companies selling chatbots, but no one really understands the value, no one is even talking about the value. And that is what we were not very satisfied with, one. And the other was multilingual users not using these bots. People like you and me, we might use bots at some point of time, but not the people we were trying to solve the problem for.
Yeah, that's interesting. And in fact, even apps, I don't see, I don't know if there's a technical reason why you should not use voice through the apps. I mean, even if you look at Google today, Google gives you a kind of a microphone icon over there,
Yeah.
through which you can speak and search rather than typing. So even through apps, I suppose voice can be delivered, and that's very possible. Now, by the way, a quick message to everybody on this webinar. Like Shraddha mentioned, please post your questions in the Q&A box, not in the chat box. I'll look at them and ask. So Sourabh and I are going to chat for maybe, I don't know, 30, 35, maybe max 40 minutes, and then we'll open up to questions. But in the meantime, you can place your questions in the Q&A box. So now, Saurav, let me kind of be a client. Okay, so let's say I'm somebody who's running a customer service operation. I'm running a contact center. So is there a how do I, is there something like being ready to adopt a technology such as yours? I mean, are there some check boxes which I need to check off or tick off before I can say, okay, come in and implement your solution?
Yeah. MD, honestly, not too much. Just there are some basic things, that enterprise needs to have telephony in place. The enterprise needs to have some sort of IVR in place. Some numbers, should be tracked at any point of time. The enterprise should understand what is the efficacy of their call center. What are the SLAs they are running at? What are they good at? What are they not good at? Because when we go in and start working with an enterprise, we are a very value driven solution, right? So we understand the metrics of the call center, and then after a solution we try to change those metrics, and that is the value we provide to a customer. These are very basic things, so we see most of the call centers having that in place, but other than this, honestly, not much.
And should it be of a certain size, a minimum size, for instance?
Yeah, we we've taken a call to work with only larger enterprises. So most of our enterprises will have at least a few hundred agents in the call center, if not a few thousand. But yeah, the technology in general works at every scale.
That's because just the effort in, I suppose, customizing the solution is the same regardless of whether it's small or big. Is that the primary reason?
Yeah, it is. And these things, I mean, MD, they can get very complex. It's not easy to automate what users are saying on the phone. So we spend significant amount of time in understanding, looking at customer data, building our models, and showing those numbers.
So one thing I can think of straight away is, especially when you said IVR and so on, I mean, your bot can act as an IVR as well, direct calls, to the agents, maybe handle some of the calls and all that good stuff. So there's straight away some value delivered through improved service levels. Other than that, what other kind of pains does the product solve?
Yeah. So MD, call centers traditionally have been, very painful part of running any business. High costs, high attrition rates, high training costs. And for the end users, IVRs can get frustrating. In enterprises in India have average time of 60 to 70 seconds on IVR. And then wait times post that could be anywhere between 30 seconds to 30 minutes, sometimes even more than that. So IVRs for businesses are huge costs and a huge pain. And for end users, the experience is not good. And post bot experiences, the same queries can get answered in the first few seconds, almost instantaneously, right? So this is what we are doing, is bringing a very peripheral shift in how call centers have been operating from the last 20-25 years.
Sure, I'll get into the details of that a little later, but I just want to kind of continue being the boss of the customer service operation and understanding where all I could use you. So let's say if I have a spike, Diwali time, Christmas time, where my volumes maybe double, triple, especially if I'm in a retail domain. Yeah. How can you fit in? Can you just fit in only for a season and fit out, or you'll continue, or how does it work in such scenarios?
Yeah, no, that's a very interesting thing that you mentioned, MD, because a few customers have this specific problem, specifically looking at e-commerce, where, around Diwali, they have peak in volumes, and even companies like DTH, wherein, if the IPL season is starting, they'll have 3x, 4x call volumes coming in. And the bigger problem is these companies have to start staffing. They have to start thinking about staffing 6 months before the peak time. After that, they have to start hiring, and then they have to train the people. And then after they've got them on board, it takes another 2 to 3 months to, let go of them. So for a peak of a quarter, they're actually spending 3 quarters. And this can be a big pain for the customer. Whereas something like a voice bot can handle, the concurrency is not a challenge. Bot can handle tens of thousands of queries at any point of time. You can handle 1,000 queries today, 10,000 tomorrow. So once you plug in, that problem gets solved ultimately.
Sure. So that's pretty a straightforward kind of value you can deliver, especially when you have spikes in volume. What about especially 24/7 operations have this the night shift, which is a big problem. Problem getting people over there. There are health issues with them, and so on. Do you see value in those kind of situations where volumes are relatively less, by the way?
Yeah. Of course, MD. I mean, that goes without saying that, we work 24/7 with a lot of our customers. We try to, they've stopped having agents in the night just because they have a bot now. And for the complex queries, in fact, we try to capture what the person is saying, and then we tell them that, what, this is what the bot can handle, but, I'll make sure that agent calls you first thing tomorrow morning to get it solved.
Mm. Okay, so these are all some of the situations which I've created. But given the fact that you've been around now and selling well to kind of Indian customers, what do you hear from them? What's the primary one or two reasons why they are taking your solution?
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot about inbound, MD. What we are seeing is there's significant demand even in outbound use cases for
Sure.
customers. And typically, an enterprise will have a marketing team, and this marketing team, we can talk about BFSI, where this marketing team is, responsible for making outbound calls, let's say for credit cards, credit card lead qualification or post qualification of lead and post giving a credit card. We've seen that people don't adopt credit cards, so there are outbound calls being made right now by humans across, different, use cases. And there, the challenge is human agent is calling. There can be a significant, tries that a human agent has to do, and the person might pick up the call and say, what, I'm busy right now. Call
Yeah.
me, let's say 4 hours later or something like that. So outbound calling operations are very inefficient, and we are increasingly seeing demand of customers to use this as well, because we can do like a voice blast of let's say 1 lakh calls in 1 hour, whereas an enterprise might need a few hundred people to do that over 3-4 days.
Sure. Sure. But now let's get into details of the user customer experience itself. So if I'm a person receiving one of those outbound calls from your bot, will I be able to make out that it's not a human being?
Yeah, so that's very interesting. Initially, we thought that everyone should be able to make out that it is a bot, because the voice might sound robotic or they might try playing around with it. But increasingly, what we are seeing is that 30-40% people are not able to figure it out. And even if they're able to figure out, that's actually way into the call. If they've spent 40-45 seconds talking to the bot, that's when they end up realizing that they're talking to a bot. And somehow people have started writing about it. We've seen posts of users on LinkedIn, on Twitter, where they talk to our customers and talk about the experience they're having. And we also have to understand, unlike the West, this is the first time people are actually experiencing talking to a bot. So people are also very ecstatic. They're very excited when they experience something like this.
But they are able to make out. I mean, is that what you're saying? That they are able to make out that they're talking to a machine?
70% people, yes. And we see that number reducing over a period of time.
Okay, and you see that, meaning your technology itself is improving such that it's becoming more close to a human kind of interaction. Is that how it's reducing?
Correct. I think there are a few factors, that are important. Factors like latency, factors like, the understanding of emotions. Because how you and me talk, if you are agitated, I'm not going to talk in a similar way, right? I'll probably change my tonality. Those are some of the important things which a bot needs to understand. And we have a roadmap for that. So we are building things like sentiment analysis. We are doing things like gender detection, age detection, dialect, accent detection, those kind of things. And as and when these things start getting deployed in our deployments across customers, we feel that these numbers will keep on changing, improving over time. For example, one of the things we're doing is we're building a text to speech engine in Bhojpuri. And what that will ensure is, if a user is calling from Bihar and talking to a bot in Bhojpuri, a bot will respond to the user back in Bhojpuri. Now, this is something which is going to be very unique. We are obviously yet to see results for this, but we believe that this will significantly increase the percentages of, not just for people who feel that it's a human, but also conversion numbers and all other metrics.
Yeah, you said detection, and part of your roadmap, you said you're detecting sentiment and so on. That is when a customer speaks to you, but you need to speak the same way as well. I mean,
Yeah.
show emotion in how you speak and so on. Do you see that as a challenge?
It is a challenge technically. I mean, these problems are not solved, especially when we look at Indian Southeast Asian context. No one really has done any work in these local dialects accents. Having said that, we have done significant work. We've been doing this for the last 2 years. And we already have a few models that we have deployed internally. We are testing them rigorously. And at the right time, I think over the next few weeks, we'll start deploying these as well.
Okay, cool. So anyway, looking a little more under the hood. So how does it work? I mean, so if I was to deploy your solution at let's say my contact center, how long would it take for your bot to be effective in responding to my customers?
Yeah. So it will take us anywhere between 2 weeks to 6 weeks to deploy, depending on the complexity of the call center, depending on the processes an enterprise has at the call center. And in larger enterprises, we've typically done phase-wise deployments because we know. We take example of a bank. The complexity can be significantly high. We are talking about some 700, 800 different things people can talk about. Right? And these are just intents. And then there are thousands of ways people can talk about these intents. We have seen that we are able to hit, show ROI to customers within the first couple of months. So that is very strong. And then we have a roadmap for the next 3 years with most of our customers, where we will keep improving, the numbers month on month, quarter on quarter.
And when you say ROI, it really means that what was being handled by an agent is now being handled by the bot.
Yeah. ROI typically we see across metrics, but one of the most important metric is cost cutting. Right. So we are able to show ROI in terms of what the business is spending on our solution versus the cost saving they're having internally.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. I can see that. I mean, an agent costs X, and to answer a certain call, and your bot will be a fraction of that X. But what about calls which kind of get transferred to the agent? Is there some value addition at the agent end with your bot?
Yeah. So there can be two categories of calls, right? So one category of call is we are not able to understand anything, or we just transfer it to a human agent in the very first turn. There we are not adding much value, to be honest. But then a lot of calls we understand to a good extent, and then we transfer to an agent, right? And in those calls, what we are seeing is that we are able to reduce the average handling time of the agent. If an agent was spending, let's say, 2 to 3 minutes on the call, we are reducing that time by 40 to 60% because we've already collected some information, and we show that information on the dashboard of the agent whenever he picks up the phone. And then he can start from, let's say, the 7th or the 8th turn instead of starting from scratch again. And there is a lot of value that happens. And these things can get very complex and deep. We typically sit with the enterprise for a few weeks. We do workshops with them. Then we create the whole ROI plan, which is again a complex complex thing. It'll be typically an Excel file with 70, 80 rows, numbers all over the place.
Yeah, sure. So agents are not very good at actually reading history and stuff like that. I mean, you would have seen it yourself when you call call centers. In all probability, you'll have to repeat whatever you said earlier. Okay, they're not very good at, even though information is available, they're not very good at kind of reading history and so on. So how would you solve that problem? Is it a presentation issue, you think, or how's that? How can you handle that?
Yeah, we were seeing it initially in our first deployment we did in India, and what we ended up doing was we realized it's a training problem, to be honest. Is what we realized. Agents were seeing all the things in front of them, but they were not using it. So we actually ended up spending time at the call center, with all the trainers. And then we created a whole playbook of how to train agents when a bot is deployed. And now we are using that playbook across our deployments.
Okay, cool. Now, Google and Amazon have also, built voice tech, and, they built it for India. I think they too have technology for multiple languages in India. So how do you compare with them? I mean, how do you why do customers choose you rather than, going with Google or an Amazon?
Yeah. Multiple reasons. I'll talk about a few of them. I think the most primary reason is accuracies. When we talk about India, Southeast Asia, we can't talk about English. We have to talk about multiple languages. And even when we talk about English, for example, there are multiple dialects and accents. So accuracies need to be good across all these dialects and accents. That is one. Uh, the other problem here is when we talk about specific enterprises, they have their own, vocabulary. When you go to banks, you go to telcos, or any enterprise for that matter, they will have their own products, and those products will have their own names. Now, a speech engine should be able to understand these things. And what Google and Amazon and Microsoft provide is a very horizontal engine, which might work out for products like Siri and Google Home, Google Assistant, etc. But it doesn't provide the right accuracies for enterprises. We are seeing day by day that our accuracies are at least 10 to 15% more than these platforms. That is one. The other thing is that these are all horizontal technology providers. Uh, where we come into picture is we have skin in the game. Google says, this is my platform, to a call center team, do whatever you want to do with this platform. So call center team will typically find an SI partner who's not well trained on, building a voice bot, and they will somehow try to use, create something. We've seen customers trying that and then coming back to us, a few months later saying it didn't work out. Whereas we have skin in the game saying, what, these are the metrics that we define. This is what we will achieve for you. And in some cases, we charge the customer post meeting those KPIs, and that changes the game for the enterprise. And then they know that the seriousness of our solution versus Google, Amazon, etc.
Which brings me to an interesting point. So post deployment, is the involvement from your team high as well? I mean, let's say you've kind of trained for the vocabulary which you talked about for a specific customer or for a specific industry. What happens after that? Let's say the product has already been there for 5, 6, maybe 12 months. From your end, is there a lot of, shall I say, support or maintenance kind of required?
Yeah, three things, MD, here. First thing is we obviously do support and maintenance. Wherein if there are any issues with the bot, we have a team we have account managers that are working on the specific accounts, and they're engaging with the customers day on day. The second thing is that nature of AI is it has to improve over a period of time, and we ensure that it improves over a period of time. So we have these monthly business reviews, quarterly business reviews with the customers, where we are showing them that what, these were the numbers that we were seeing a month earlier, and this is what we have done over a period of time, and we use customer data to retrain our models. And third thing is, we have with some customers recently gone back to them and told them that you should actually incentivize us on improving numbers over time, because it increases your saving. So we've closed a few deals where the more we automate, the more we save, the more money we keep making over time. So that model fits in perfectly. Now we have teams that are just ensuring that we keep improving the numbers, and we keep making more money by that.
Sure. Interesting. Saurabh, I'm going to switch to some of the questions coming from the audience. I'll ask that and then come back to some more questions which I have. Okay, one question here is that chatbot marketing is going to be the future of marketing industry. Great. How vernacular language bots boost the economy without affecting jobs of customer support people? Is it possible?
See, MD, a couple of thoughts on that. I think the first thought is a few things are just inevitable. And by that, I mean, this is happening. This is the future. If we don't do it, someone else will do it. It's like self-driving cars, they will come, and then, I think the job will change. There are a lot of new jobs that are coming. So upskilling is the real issue that we need to talk about, and we need to, focus on and try to solve. Having said that, at least in what we are doing, we do see some automation happening, and some, you probably, if you have 1,000 agents, you don't need 1,000, maybe you need 800. But technology and humans are going to work together, at least for the next few years, if not more.
Yeah. Also, I think a related point is that, do you think all possible intents are automatable? I mean, when I say intent, it's the reason with which the customer is calling. We're talking about inbound, of course. Is all of it automatable, you think?
Not at all. And I mean, there are so many complex use cases, like people complaining when products are not working. There are complex cases in BFSI like frauds, where you really need that human touch, someone to run people through things. When people are frustrated, when the user is frustrated, that is not the right time for bot to handle. So technology it will catch up, I think, in a few years. We are far from 100% automation.
Okay, let me take another question. Do you create the initial training data for a new language, or are there off-the-shelf libraries available? Any projects outside India? What will it take to? I think multiple questions are here. So let me ask the first one, which is, do you create initial training data for a new language, or are there shelf libraries available? And then there's a follow-up question.
Depends on the language, is the answer. There's some languages like English. I mean, again, we have to understand English is not English. There's US English, UK English, Indian English. All these are different data sets that you need. Similarly, Hindi, there are different accents, etc. But for some languages like English and maybe Hindi, you will get a few hours of data, not sufficient for creating a voice ASR or a speech to text model. So you have to go out and collect data. And that is why I think, a strong reason why we've not seen technologies like this, coming up a few years before. Because of
I see. So you actually go out and collect data in those languages.
Yeah, thousands of hours of tag data. So it's not even a small quantity that we're talking about. And similar case I heard you mentioning SEA or global. We see similar experience in Southeast Asia. Data is not available, so you have to go out, collect data on your own, and then build the models.
Okay. That is in a way a kind of a barrier to entry in your kind of business as well. I see it. And I think follow-up question on the same is that what will it take for you to create an Arabic bot? So obviously this person is involved with the Middle East.
Yeah. So, I mean, if there is a lead, then I think this person and me, we should have a separate conversation.
Okay.
But on a more serious note, we are doing that. In fact, Arabic is one of the languages in our roadmap. We are talking to a few customers based out of Middle East already.
Okay.
So I mean, if there is something, then why don't we discuss separately?
Okay, so it's just that kind of the language layer of your bot which changes, I suppose. Is that how it really works?
Yeah, I mean, MD, it can get very complex as we go deeper into this. But at a high level, we need data. We need different kinds of data sets to build a model. So we talked about voice data, which is the most difficult one to get, but we also need text data because we have to map the audio samples to the text samples. So there's an acoustic model, there's a language model. These are two data sets that we need across languages. The good part is we started with India and we had to build for 10 Indian languages. And we ourselves didn't understand more than 2-3, right? So that ensured that we build the right SOPs of creating a new language. And now if we are adding Bahasa Arabic, we just have to follow the same steps to get that right.
Yeah, super. Okay, another question, and then I will ask some more of my questions and come back to the audience questions. What percentage of volumes can normally be deflected to the bots? The observation is that only basic and generic queries can be handled by bots. So this is a question of how complex can the intents get?
Yeah. I mean, I wish there was an easy answer to this, but I mean, I'm very sorry, but I have to say it depends on the context. In some use cases, in some customers, we have automated up to 70%. In other use cases, we have automated up to 10%, and both took similar effort. So it really depends on the nature of the query. Having said that, MD, what we have seen is in most of the enterprises, even automating basic queries. Let me give you an example of a bank. If you call, it's one of the most premium banks in the country. You call them to change your registered address. You have to navigate 60-70 seconds on IVR, 5-7 minutes wait time, connect with an agent. You ask him this, agent will say, you can only change your address by visiting a bank branch. And then he hangs up. Now, a user spent 8 minutes. The business, that bank has spent 70 to 80 rupees in answering this query. And even if you can automate all these queries, we are talking about a significant, because the volume is so high, we're talking about 1.5-2 lakh calls every day. It's a significant cost impact for the enterprise. and that itself works out. But typically we are seeing for very complex use cases, we'll have 10-15% automation in the first year, 25 in the second, up to 50-55 in the third year.
So let's get into a little bit of detail on this, because it's an important theme to talk about. So can off the top of your head, can you kind of describe a complex or one of the complex kind of intents which you have completely automated?
Sure. I think I am reminded of an example of a broadband customer, right? And one of the complex things we've done for them is, let's say your internet is not working. This is not very uncommon these days. So you end up picking the phone, calling the business, and now typically an agent will follow an SOP, and this SOP will be asking a few questions to the customer or to the user, asking questions like, do you see those 3 lights on? Are you sure that all your wires are plugged in right? Can you switch off and then switch on again? And in all of these things, there could be wait time. Now, for example, if I'm an agent, you're a user, I'll tell you, can you switch off and switch on your router? And you'll say, okay, I will do it. And that process takes 30 to 40 seconds, because you'll switch off, you'll switch on. It takes some time to, switch on properly and all of that. So we have to understand holding as a feature. We have to create that. We have to understand the right prompts that the user says, okay, fine, I have switched it on. Now it's, working or not working, and what to do after that. So this was one of the more complex things that we did here. The call time also, I think, could be beyond 5-6 minutes in some cases.
Actually, what you're talking about is more of a technical support kind of a scenario where probing becomes very important. And probing is a skill, by the way, many human agents also don't quite have. I mean, they struggle, at least. I can tell you that from experience. So given those environments, how strict should these rules be in your system? Or, is there some tree needs to be built? Or probing comes naturally, or can be built naturally within your product?
Yeah, I think again, I'm not very sure, MD, how the team did it, but I mean, I think what we've in general had an approach of A/B testing, right? There's no right answer, and these are not easy problems to solve, right? So we typically go in with a hypothesis, having a very customer-centric or user-centric mindset, saying, this is user, can we put user in the center of the table and work backwards after that, saying what can we do, or how can we have a conversation so that the problem of the user is solved in the most comfortable way, right? And then we have 1 hypothesis, 2 hypotheses, 3 hypotheses. We do those things, we see the numbers. Whenever we launch something like this, we also do a lot of user research. We end up calling the customers after we have solved the problem. We call those users and we say, what, you were talking to a bot, how was your experience, what did you like, what did you not like? And there's a lot of iteration we do to get to the final answer.
Sure. Okay, I'm going to switch to some of my questions, and then we'll come back to audience questions again. And it's a good point, because you talked about your team. You said your team had built it. You're not quite sure. Now, to build a product, kind of a high-tech product of this kind, you need to have a super team. You need to attract some of the best talent around. How did you do that?
Yeah, I think, MD, we got very lucky with that, because the first, I think, 10-15 people were our batchmates from college, and those were like the best people you can find for the hardest technical problems to solve, and that kind of enabled us to start very quickly. And then in general, we obviously ensure that we had the best our process of even getting an engineer on board are very strict, and the ratios of number of people we interview versus the people who get in are huge, right? And so I mean, in a sentence, I think it was just that we came from that background, and our batchmates somehow they joined us. None of us had anything to lose. Start of our careers, and we ended up doing it.
So in all 10 of you kind of joined straight out of college. Is that what the story is?
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
Something like that. So obviously you're a much bigger. How many people do you have now?
I think we'll be touching 100 in a month.
Okay, so you're 10 times the number of people who joined you, initially from your college.
Yeah.
So to build that also, you need to build a kind of a core in terms of values. Did you think about it? Have you thought about it? Or has it just evolved? I mean, what binds this organization together?
Sure. I think everything evolves is the general thought we have. And if it doesn't, then there's some problem. You need to go back because the rate of growth is very high, and you need to keep relooking at different things. We got in the concept of culture and values very early in the company. We used to read a lot about this even before we started vernacular, and we had values early on, and we had, I think, 7, 8, 9 values. And at some point of time, and we used to do retros on these values, like retrospects. What is it that is working for us, what is not working for us. And what we realize is values are a function of a couple of things. One is what you believe in, and what makes you successful, and the other is what you want to do in the next phase of your life. And we keep doing this culturally. Every 3 to 6 months we look back at these values, and we try to see what is working for us, if we need to improve or not. And one of the values that we added recently was actually feedback, right? And both giving and taking feedback, which is very important for a company like us. We are a unique company, is what we've realized. It's not another e-commerce company that can copy the model of a Flipkart or an Amazon and build things. We are a unique company. There are very unique challenges, so we need to constantly keep giving each other feedback on how we are working. And that is something we started valuing quite a lot. We started talking about it. We started writing about how we give feedback to each other, how we give and take feedback, and how it is agnostic to the level of a person in the company, right? I can get feedback from a manager, and I can give feedback to a manager, and we all need to be very comfortable with this, right? So this is one of the values that we feel is very important. And then there are another few values that we obviously look at. In general, we are a very young, high energy, dynamic company, and that is what works. Those are the kind of people who work out with us. People who are ready to work hard. Who don't really have any boundaries. I mean, we have 5 days a week as official, but I know for a fact there are at least 20-25% people working even on Saturdays and Sundays. So that is the kind of setup that works with us.
And COVID must have thrown a spanner into this whole thing because, I mean, as a young company, you'd like to work together, but then now you've all spread across Bangalore or maybe across the country.
Yeah. No, I think the biggest challenge was we were, I think, around 20-25 people start of the year, and now we are touching 100. So most of our hiring happened in COVID, and the problem is we've not even seen most a lot of people. Right? Forget in person. Some people like to keep their videos off, so we've hired them, but we've not seen their face post that. So that's sort of been a challenge. I think when we started working from home, we realized there were some issues like people. There were too many meetings, and people were meetings were getting overlapped, and those kind of things. But we figured it out. Good part is a lot of us are happy being alone also in our houses. Some of us used to live alone, even if we were great friends at work. So it's not been a very big challenge for us, to be honest. A lot of teams still wants to keep working from home, is what I see.
Really? So you think after vaccine and hopefully all this lifting of all these constraints, you guys will get back together, or you'll kind of continue? Like I know Twitter CEO has said that their employees can work for life from home.
Yeah. No, I think our sales team has been pushing us significant a lot to start working from office. So we'll probably start doing that soon. We are thinking April, maybe, at that time. We will never push anyone. I think my mindset changed significantly. I was not a big believer of working from home earlier. But I don't think we'll ever be a company that pushes people to come to office every day. And that will be left to teams and individuals to decide where they want to work out from.
Yeah, staying with the hiring and of talent itself, is there a kind of person? I know you mentioned somewhere you're a young company, so tend to be youngsters around. But is there is there a kind of person who will not fit into your environment?
MD, I think people who think they know it all, typically that doesn't work out with a setup like ours, because the way we think is we are in a very new kind of a setup, new kind of a company. again, no playbooks, etc. And that means we need to start questioning everything that we are doing, every couple of months to ensure we're on the right track. So I think people who think they know it all and not ready to take feedback or question themselves, look at them, in retrospect, improve. Those kind of people have not traditionally worked out in vernacular.
So obviously you must have made some mistakes as well in your hiring.
Yeah, I mean, that always happens. I think
of course.
more mistakes than most
that's part of the learning. So I'm going to switch back to audience questions now. What's the next one? So how effective have multilingual bots been? How can the multilingual, in brackets, Indian bots be democratized going forward?
Yeah. How have multilingual bots been? I can talk
think
about,
in terms of effectiveness.
Yeah, I can talk about examples. I mean, we've done deployment with Axis Bank. We've talked about it. Axis Bank has talked about it in public also. And we have seen, honestly, we have seen great adoption. MD primarily because, when we look at a before and after world, before world, there is no world because you are stuck on IVR and wait times. And post that, you are actually getting your query answered in the first few seconds, right? And adoption is also not a challenge because people are already calling, right? So there is, in a way, a forced adoption that a user ends up in, and we have seen people being happy and going through, and conversion numbers are higher than even human agents in some cases. So
sure.
Overall, the signs are very positive for multilingual bots.
Okay, cool, excellent. Actually, what about training? Does it kind of reduce the requirement for training, or does the training have to focus on more complex scenarios for the agent? Yeah. What's the impact on the trainers?
Yeah, I think they just start focusing on other things. One of our use cases, again, what we saw was we ended up automating a part of inbound call center of the customer, and the customer actually trained their agents on making outbound calls, which were more complex, which can't be handled by a bot for sure. And that meant business not just reduce their costs by automation, they actually ended up increasing the revenue because these outbound calls were to corporates, and the ticket size was much higher.
Sure. Okay, this is again a question which is talking about, how much can you push the tech on this, which is one of the major challenges we have seen with bot is its inability to upsell and cross-sell. So which means this person is already using a bot, I guess, for which a tenure agent does a very good job. Do you see a future where bot is actually contributing to these kind of scenarios?
Yeah. Do we see a future? Yes, for sure. Never say never, but can it happen today? We don't think so. Upsell, cross-sell, or selling in general is a complex thing, and it needs emotions, it needs persuasion, and those are very well handled by human agents, and bots across the whole globe are not at a level where they can do that. What can be done though, MD, is we have done pre-qualification of leads. If an agent is spending, let's say, for example, 10 minutes in selling, for the first 2-3 minutes he's only asking basic questions. This, I'm giving an example of a credit card company where the agent is asking, are you public sector employee, private sector employee, what is your salary, where do you live, etc. Those can be handled by the bot, and then the call can be transferred to an agent. So we can reduce the AHT by 30-40%, but bots can't sell.
Yeah, sure. And there's once again, this is all about effectiveness of bots. The next question is that I have never come across a chatbot. He's talking about chatbot specifically, which lasts beyond 2 questions intelligently. Me and my organization believe that the technology is at least 2 years away from being meaningful. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, again, I really don't know. Are we talking about chat? Sure. As in text, or are we talking about voice? But having said that, in our deployments, we are easily doing 5, 6, 7 turns, right? So we can, in fact, I don't know who the person is, what company the person is from, but we'll be happy to, share the case studies and show how, in fact, just share phone numbers on where you can actually test and see how users are going through multiple turns. We are doing, I think 4 or 5 turns are normal in most of our deployments.
Okay, interesting. Because if you're doing 10% of the calls being automated, you should be coming across those scenarios. I mean, you can't, leave it with just the simple scenarios. Actually, one of the reasons why, chatbots, I mean, I'm talking about the text chatbots have suddenly become popular is that many contact center managers are being pushed to reduce the calls at their call centers. So that's one way in which they think they can just, send it down a chatbot and then forget about things. This is
Yeah.
like earlier they used to do with IVRs. Try to make the customer spend as much time as possible in the IVR till he or she drops out. That too could be possible, especially with the kind of chatbot he's referring to.
Yeah.
Okay, this looks like the final question. Do you have workforce management scheduling kind of solutions as well?
Of course, that works very well in outbound. I think we briefly touched upon it, and what we talked about was in complex selling cases, an agent is making an outbound call, and he's probably having a database of 1,000 numbers. He's trying to call them. He calls, you have, there's a ringing tone. You have to wait for, let's say, around a minute to, end up in a situation where the call is not picked, or in some cases when the call is picked, the user on the other end says, "I'm busy right now. Call me at XYZ time." And the bot is able to handle these situations very well, and the agent becomes significantly more productive, wherein agent can call at the right time, or in fact the bot can call even at the scheduled time, and only if the person on the other end picks up, the bot can connect back to an agent saying, give me a minute or so.
Sure. So it becomes, expectation set can be met as also. I think he's referring to more workforce management in terms of, I think, WFM. I can answer the question myself. I think this is a voice bot kind of a technology. WFM, you have plenty of products around for that. So we leave it at that. I think that was the last question from the audience, Saurabh. So, I mean, I'll finish with and if anyone has more questions, please post. We have another at least 5 minutes. Saurabh, let me continue on.
Yeah.
You're 100 people right now. Where is the focus in terms of, shall I say, hiring talent? Is it more in sales or more in tech? Where is it?
Sure. MD, we feel that we need to hire across, there needs to be a right balance across all the teams out there. So we are hiring people across sales for sure. We are hiring people in delivery, which is a new function that we, set up a few months ago. And we are hiring people across product and R&D as well. Having said that, we are making more hires in sales because that is, sales as a function in vernacular started, I think, earlier this year. Until I think last year, it was just me and another founding member selling to enterprises. So sales, I think we need to, catch up to the hiring we've done in engineering and product. But otherwise, we're hiring across right now.
Yeah, sure. So what does 2021 look like for you? I mean, if you were to chat, let's say 12 months from now, I mean, just try and paint that picture for us. What will you be looking like?
Sure.
Let me put it this way: from customer problem perspective, I'm not talking about size of the company and so on, but from solving customer problems, what more problems would you have solved, you think, in 12 months from now?
Yeah, MD, we are focused on primarily on solving the problems that we've talked about using VoiceBot, and we feel this is itself so deep. Right now that we need to do justice. Given we've been looking at questions that were coming today, there are doubts in people's mind how much automation is possible. Some people have not seen automation beyond 2 turns. So we feel it's our responsibility now that the platform we are at to ensure that people believe in this, people see results of this. One other thing to talk about here is this technology, the numbers are improving every month, every quarter. So the numbers that we are seeing today will be very different from the numbers we are seeing 12 months from now in our existing customer. If we have automated 15% of call center of a bank, next year that number will become 35%. So that is something we are very excited about and looking forward to, because the case studies will keep evolving every quarter. And 1 year down the line, we are sure that not just the early adopters, but the whole industry is believing in the power of voice AI and voice bots to automate call centers. We also see ourselves solving the problem of having human-like conversations, which is very important to us. We briefly touched upon that: sentiment analysis, gender, age detection, dialect, accent detection. So we are doing significant work in that direction. A year down the line, you call a bank, any bank in India or any telco in India, you will talk to a bot, you talk in your local dialect accent. MD, I think for you it will be some dialect of Kannada, and you talk in that and we'll respond to you in that. That is going to be very powerful. We also,
No, go ahead. You finish.
we also see ourselves doing this across the globe. We've had early success in Southeast Asia, and where we are seeing problems are very similar. The complexity of dialects, accents, tonality, etc. And I think not just in India but across the globe now we will start having people talk about this.
Okay, cool. That's great. I was, I don't think there are any more questions. Actually, the what you talked about. I mean, one is of course understanding sentiment and so on of the person who's speaking to the bot. I think the day when the bot is really human-like, where I as a customer can't kind of make out the difference, I think that would be the day really. And I based on what at least our conversation, you're quite close to that. That's what you're telling me.
Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed, MD. Let's see how much time it takes. We are working full force in that direction, and hopefully in the next few years, maybe.
And also I think it's one is of course automating completely, but agents are going to be around. I don't think 100% of the calls will ever get automated. I think even providing help to the agents, like you said, capturing some of the fields, early on, then passing on to the agent where you can reduce the AHT. Those are things. But also the other thing agents have a problem with is actually taking notes. All of them need to enter notes into a CRM system. Yeah. And I know I still haven't come across one company where they take notes well. And which is one reason, by the way, the agent who follows up never reads the notes, because the notes is normally crap. I mean, there's nothing in it. Yeah. They've used some shorthand notations, and they do it just because something needs to be there. Otherwise, they can't close that. They can't hit the OK button. I think that's why that's how they fill up these fields. So do you see that happening? Do you think you can actually kind of summarize calls and so on?
Yeah. Technically, MD, yes. There are a lot of use cases around the periphery of what we do. What you're talking about is ACW, after call work automation. Yeah. And this is there. I think another use case that we talk about quite a lot is detecting if a user is frustrated real time on call. If you can do that real time on call in the first 10-15 seconds, you are practically converting a bad NPS call to a good NPS call, and you can do that by transferring the call to a supervisor or whatever the SOP is, and NPS can be linked to lifetime value of the customer. So that itself is very powerful. So ACW is there. Frustration detection is something that we think is, and there are other use cases also around the periphery of what we are doing. Call centers in general are one of the. I mean, we know that tens of millions of dollars are spent on call centers, every year. So they take care of significant part of the balance sheet of enterprises, and there is significant technology investment needed, not just from vernacular. We believe there'll be multiple startups coming in, solving different problems and going deep into them. What we do believe in is we need to go deep. We can't just solve the problem at let's say 10% automation. It needs to go beyond that. It needs to go to 30, 40, 50% automation. And that is when we can jump on other problems, because these problems individually are so deep technical problems that they can take forever.
Sure. You mentioned the NPS somewhere in this conversation. So do you actually do a follow-up measurement on some form of a customer perception on satisfaction after your bot conversation?
Yeah, I mean, it is not one of the easier things to do, primarily because people call centers to get their query answered, and then they want to cut the call. It's unlike Ola, Uber, where you can't.
Not necessarily during the call, but after the call.
Yeah, we do that.
Is there a post?
There are multiple ways we do it. Sometimes a conversational design team is making calls to people to understand their experience. We do those surveys from time to time. We send SMS to people, which we ask them to fill. We also make sometimes outbound calls to people using our bot and ask them to rate the experience. So there are different channels we use, to get it. Not everyone gives the, obviously, but yeah, I think it's very important for enterprises to do it in general as well.
Of course, I think many of them do it as well. Hey, it's 8:30. That's perfect 1 hour, Saurabh. Thank you very much for taking out the time to chat, and thanks to Vernacular as well for supporting this session. So with that, wishing everybody a happy rest of the year and much better 2021 to everybody. I hopefully we'll come out of the situation we are in very quickly. Over to you, Shraddha.
Sure. Thank you, Sourabh and MD, for this very insightful session, firstly. To all participants, hope you enjoyed the last session of the year. We look forward to meeting you all again next year. So do join us for our next online event on the 28th of January. We'll be sharing the details of the event over email, so do watch your inbox. Thank you all for joining us today and wish you all very happy holidays. With that, we'll end the session.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.